Hey there, my name is Chris Matera, and I am running for school committee. Just a little bit about me. I've been in Sutton since 2012. I've been on the Zoning Board of Appeals since 2018, and I'm recording this from my office with a blurred or gray background because my office is a mess. So the format of this will be I'm going to read the question, and then I will give you my answer. And hopefully, these are the same questions for the forum. So hopefully that helps you kind of learn a bit about me and sort of how I think. So the first question is, what do you believe is the core mission of the school committee? And how would you fulfill that mission in today's challenging educational landscape? So the core mission of the school committee is to manage the budget, hire and manage the superintendent, and to help create and approve policies for the district. So on the budget needs to be closely managed. Um, we need to double down with our town and elected officials and private businesses to find funding from all sources, not just the taxpayer. For me, I would advocate strongly for just a line by line budget review of all our discretionary spending. We need to see what we're doing. Is it being used? So, for example, subscriptions on software and things like that. How are we measuring that usage? Or are those dollars being maximized? If they're not being maximized, can we redirect them to other things that are better? Um, every single piece of discretionary spending should be looked at because we need to make sure that all of our money is being directed toward learning and being used effectively, and we need to measure that. So I think we do a good job of that right now. But I would love a budget that parents can interact with, can download on a spreadsheet, and can really question. People need to see what's being spent and where their dollars are going, and it's not just parents; it's taxpayers, and it's people in the community. So on the superintendent, I mean, in theory, that's already been done. We have a great superintendent, but I think the board also needs to create SMART goals that are measurable and quantifiable. And I think we've done a little bit of that. But for example, SMART goals like a plan to increase our ELA and math scores across the district and to increase participation by communicating with parents and quarterly forums and things like that. These are the type of goals we should be creating for our superintendent. And that's, another key part of the school committee. On policies, what I've observed is oftentimes, in the packets that the school committee gets, there are these policies to review, and there's many, right? There's sometimes 10 or 15, and I don't think the school committee should be approving those in bulk. Those policies are written by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, and they've been vetted. But I think for transparency purposes, we really ought to take as a committee bite-sized chunks, right? Throw them onto the Zoom meeting or the screen so parents can see them and really talk about each one. And so I would love to see a committee that basically kind of takes these in small bites because oftentimes, people don't read the policies, right? And I think that that's really important. And so I would want just more transparency around that. Even though you can go grab them on the web, I mean, how many people really do that? I think it's incumbent on the committee to be very transparent about these policies, especially when they're policies that we're not actively creating or writing, but we're receiving from someone else. I'm a person who really believes that we need to take an active role and drive policy rather than being receivers of it. So the next question is, in a community with diverse viewpoints on education, how will you balance representing all constituents while making decisions that best serve educational needs? And then please include a specific example of how you've worked across different viewpoints to achieve a goal. Who are the constituents? So our constituents on the school committee are the people we represent, so parents, students, and the community. Um, Realistically, the committee is not going to make everyone happy. And so we need to um, basically agree to disagree sometimes. But I think if everyone approaches the job of the committee um, with positive intentions, I think we can create good common ground decisions that sort of put our Sutton students first. In my professional work, I work to optimize processes. A lot of times that includes changing workflows and things like that. And so, an example of how I've worked across viewpoints is I worked for a large university system, and there came a time due to budget constraints that the system decided to create a simple and simplified admissions process that would work for all the campuses in the system. And so, my role was to bring your vice presidents of admissions, your CIOs of the campuses, your admissions directors, your clerks who actually do the work together and figure out the best way to create a process that worked pretty much on the 80-20 rule. It accomplished 80% of the needs with 20% differentiation for different campuses. And so it was awesome. I got to whiteboard, got to talk to people, got to figure out how does this campus do admissions and why do they think they're better than this other campus. And at the end of the day, what you realize is that everyone's working towards the same goal, which is admitting students. And we can learn from each other. We can take what this particular campus does, we can meld it with what this other campus does, and we can create a new process that is more efficient. And that involved talking to the actual workers as well. And so, in a room, we had people at all different levels. We had your vice presidents, we had your clerical workers, and at the end of the day, we came together with a process that handles more than 2 million document pages per year. And we've turned admissions decisions from what used to take weeks to days once you've got all your stuff in. And that realized massive savings on the part of the university because when you turn an admissions decision around, that's revenue for your school. And so I bring that same approach to the committee is you have to bring people together from all different levels and talk to them and figure out what their needs are and how to best achieve them. And we can't settle for the way we've always done things. That's just not the way we should be working. So the next question is, with ongoing budget constraints, what specific metrics and values guide your prioritization decisions regarding programs like AP courses, foreign language arts, early childhood education, and sports? And so I would say we need to be fiscally responsible, number one. We have a $23 million-ish budget, and we should be able to live within our means. We need to prioritize programs that give our students the best chance of success, whether they go to college or enter the workforce. I think we need to expand partnerships with community colleges or even universities when there's a course that's not offered, so that students can fill those gaps that maybe we can't provide. The nice thing about that is students can get college credit and also high school credit, and it will help them save money later on, which is neat. I think AP courses are great. I encourage people to take those because, again, if you pass the AP exam, you save money with that college credit. But we need to be measuring these things. So we need to quantify how our students are doing, what they're doing, how well they're doing it, who's taking it, and we need to measure these things. We need to be data driven, right? So, because if you can't measure something, you can't manage it. And I think in a time of tough budgets, it's incumbent on us to be responsible to the taxpayer. And so we can say, hey, we've measured this. This is effective. We've measured this other thing. Students aren't taking it. And so we need to do something else. But by measuring things, we can actually manage them. And then we can justify our needs. And so, again, we need to double down on partnerships with colleges where we can offer courses. And we need to really be quantifiable in what we're doing and who's taking what and what we're offering so that we can best serve our students and live within our budget. So question 4 is, how do you view the school committee's role in addressing cultural divisions within the community that impact our schools? And what specific approaches would you take to foster constructive dialogue? So I guess I would flip that question around and say, again, why are we teaching things that are divisive, right, or divisions? I think that we really need, as a school system, to focus on kind of core competencies, things that make us better citizens, right, of our nation. things that make us better citizens of our town, things that unify us as a school district, right? Because we're all Americans, we all live in Sutton, and we all go to the Sutton schools or are involved with the schools. And so, I mean, that's my thing. Why are we teaching divisive topics, right? Let's teach English. Let's teach math. Let's teach science. Let's give kids the practical skills they need to succeed. Um, and let's teach a curriculum that gives pride in our country, pride in our town, and pride in our school. And I would say we need to avoid other topics like that. And if kids are being difficult or whatever, we need to empower the teachers to kind of redirect to these core things like pride in our country, pride in our town, and pride in our school. And so I would stress that we need to foster those aspects because those are the things that are going to make us better citizens, and better members of the town community and better members of the school community. And that's the things we should all be striving for. So the next question is, what is your stance on coordinating with other town departments regarding new housing and commercial developments, and how would you advocate for school funding needs as the town grows? So I think it's important to know that the school doesn't exist outside of the town. And so, as a committee and as a superintendent, we need to be routinely communicating with town departments. We need to talk to the town manager. We need to kind of keep abreast of new housing developments, especially things like 40B, um, that are taking place in our community. We should be planful, right? We should make sure we're doing capacity planning to understand where our gaps are going to be, and what those are. But I think we can also work to advocate for things like 40R and smart growth, right, to help offset the cost of some of those potential students. And the other thing is, if there's a new business development in town, we ought to be advocating with the town for community partnership agreements that help the schools, right? Because again, the schools are part of the town, and we play an active role in that. So I think that those are a couple of things. And being on the zoning board, I have a unique appreciation for that because some of those decisions run through the zoning board. And so again, just keeping abreast of these things will help us, right? Because at the end of the day, we can't just say, hey, we need more money for what, right? We need more money because more schools, more students are coming, or, we've noticed X, Y, and Z changes based on the data that we're looking at. So we need to just be really smart. And I think that staying connected with the town will help us do that. So the next question is, how will you ensure transparency and effective communications with the community, particularly around controversial issues that arise in our schools? So again, I would sort of say, what are those controversial issues? Why are we teaching those controversial issues, or are just things that are popping up? I think we, as a school committee, need to encourage radical transparency from teachers to superintendents to principals to committee members. We need to be very open. And again, we need to be encouraging topics and discussions that emphasize pride in our country, pride in our town, and pride in our school. Um, I think it would be interesting. Oftentimes you get these forms of things that are going to be taught, and it's just sort of bullet points, right? I would love more regular communication with parents that show you not just the bullet point, but sort of what is inside that bullet point. Because if you take that little bullet point on the form that you opt in or opt out your child to, there's more to the curriculum than that. And I think parents want to know what's being taught. Not to nitpick or whatever, but to see what's kind of going on inside there. I think transparency builds trust. And I think that we are at a point in time where that's so important. Parents are leaving their kids in the school for, 6.5 hours a day, and there's a lot of trust there. And we need to basically cultivate that and be good stewards of it. Excuse me. Question 7, and this is the final question, are what strategies would you pursue to maximize state and alternative funding sources for Sutton schools to reduce the burden on local taxpayers while maintaining educational quality? And I think that's a good question. I think we need to start thinking out of the box for funding. because we are at a point in time where we are being priced out in a lot of ways of things. So taxes are going up, food prices are going up. We've had years and years of high prices, and we need to be really respectful of our population. We want to create, I think, a town that is inexpensive to live in and welcomes everyone. And I think you can do that with our current situation, but I think we need to work with our elected officials. We need to, again, keep abreast of what's going on in the town and look at private partnerships. Well, of course, we need to look at grants, um, but we shouldn't just automatically say, hey, we need an override, right? We need to quantify these things. I'm against an override currently because I don't think that that's the solution. I think kind of good stewards and out of the box thinking will help us manage our finances. So grants, let's not leave any grant money on the table, but also keep in mind that there's no such thing as free money and what strings go with those grants. Private partnerships, let's look at what other towns are doing. Let's look at naming rights for facilities, right? Like the town of Gloucester did with their stadium. Let's look at grants and private partnerships with things like Unified. Maybe bringing a STEM course in, right, can be funded by a company. I think we're doing some of that already. But let's also look at where our tax dollars are going and where our budget is being spent. And are we putting more money in one place and less money in another and shift money around? Um, because I think raising taxes right now, we're really going to hurt our elderly population in our community that's on a fixed income. And of course, let's look at 40R as well. Smart growth and private partnerships with businesses, right? Other towns have done things like alumni networks and things. We just need to be smart. But I'm not a person, I don't like hearing that we just need more money because as a taxpayer, I would want to know precisely what the money's being spent on, how it's being spent, why you need more money, and can you give me the data and facts to back that up? Um, and I think that's incumbent on us as a community and a school community to provide to our constituents, which include the taxpaying population who doesn't go to school. So I think that that's how we maximize things. We're getting more money in Chapter 70 aid. I think we're getting $150 now per student from the surtax, so that will help. Um, of course, there's questions around a TIF and whether it gets renewed. If we don't renew the TIF, there's some more money there. So there's levers and ways we can work to gain more money for the schools without necessarily raising taxes. And so that's kind of where I would go. And that was the final question. So I appreciate you listening. I've been holding Meet the Candidate events. So I would encourage you to reach out if you've got questions. I'd love to talk to anyone I can. And hopefully I'll see you as I'm door knocking. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.